Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliate stations coast to coast present
Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue.
No-hitter for Arrieta.
Discussing baseball, good drinks, and food.
So,
Or clear for a minute so I can write down the damn time.
It just got weird.
With Ted Hicks.
Everybody wants to be Bartolo.
Todd Vandenberg.
The handsomest man on the entire goddamn tour.
And Lee Vowell.
Folks, look around. Anyone who's not singing in the choruses is a racist.
Every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on the Happy Hour Network.
And welcome to Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue, possibly with Ted, but definitely with Todd and Lee. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on the Twitter at Baseball Beer BBQ. On Facebook, we're Baseball Beer Barbecue and Barbecue. It's pretty easy. We will talk at the bottom of the hour with Jeffrey Paternostro, who writes for Baseball Prospectus and hosts Baseball Prospectus. That's why I put BP's, Todd, in the outline, because I can't say it. Host a Mets podcast there for all you kids. So, and we'd also like to thank NGSC Sports, I-95 Sports Network, Back Sports Page, I guess, RF Sports, XRP Radio, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Arena Sports Network. You can hear us there. Todd, who else do we have to thank?
Let's slow the pace down a little bit, friends. Let's talk about your computer and your virus problems. Are you infected by Zika? Hopefully not, because if you are, Computer Repair NC can't do a thing for you. However, if you have computer problems, they certainly can. At CJ Computers NC on the Twitter, 919-653-8496. PC repair, dog walking, dog bathing, they do it all. It's really just computer.
Hey, do you think Ted's ever late for his own show? Wouldn't that be weird if, like, he had a couple of moments of silence?
That'd be awesome.
Like, and then the host come on. So it's like James Brown. He's like, oh, he's back. Oh, there he is.
The shows I've listened to, he's not been late, but I do wonder. I'll have to go through iTunes and see. That would be funny. It's like the first 16 minutes and 47 seconds of Late Night Parents, dead silence.
He's such a diva, sweet. I guess. Maybe he's holding out. I don't know. Maybe this is the first few minutes of the show or like his training camp or something, and he's not getting enough money. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He always runs close to when the show's opening, for those who are listening and don't know. But
you know what?
Usually he says, I'm running late. What?
You know what? I do believe I saw him. He posted a picture on Instagram of a chopped up old school Nicky X shirt, and I think he was upset about Throwback Saturday. I think that was the problem.
Maybe. Well, Ted has been suspended now for 5 games. Then just announced live on Baseball Beer and Barbecue. Ted Hicks suspended for 5 games. We're looking maybe to trade Ted if we can get some good pieces. So basically anything that's out there.
Some good pieces or good pizzas?
Yes, either one.
Good.
Either one would work. So if you want to give us free pizza, we will be happily sending Ted your way. Just don't expect him to show up on time. So the Olympics open. They open actually I think on Wednesday, right? But the opening ceremonies are on Friday night. I will not be watching the opening ceremonies. I have a previous engagement. My wife has been nominated for an acting award, so I'll be at that party. But
excellent. What acting award?
Yeah. It's called a Georgie, and she has been. Look who finally showed up. Anyway, my wife has been. Nominated. She's been nominated before previously, and I'll be doing that. So I'll miss the opening ceremonies, but I know that the Olympics actually start on Wednesday, and I can't remember which sport starts it. But are you going to watch Are you one of those guys, Todd and Ted? Now that you're with us, do either one of you? Do you actually make a point? Ted has muted himself. He's upset with me, I guess. I'm not really sure. So Todd, we'll start with you. Todd, are you one of those guys who actually shows up at his own house and then turns on the television, makes a point of watching the opening ceremonies?
No, actually, I fly on site for the opening ceremonies and then I leave because that's the only thing that's good. Not sometimes, and sometimes that's funny. They say sometimes when you're talking about a quarterly. Anyway, every 4-year event as far as the summer games. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's more like if I've got something to do, like I've got to mow the lawn that night, or I've got to wash the dishes, or some other highly entertaining thing, I'll do that instead. If it happens to be on TV and I happen to be not comatose, then I'll probably turn it on. I mean, it's kind of cool, but how is it different? You know, I mean, it's like, okay, here we go again. Oh, look at the fireworks. Oh, look at the weird display they've done this time. I mean, it just, to me, the opening ceremony is not the big deal. Some of the sports are pretty cool, but the Olympics, to me, has just lost more and more luster as time has gone on. Perhaps I have lost my appetite for luster. Perhaps I should have an appetite training class so that I can enjoy more luster. That
Ted,
would be the
Ted
solution.
is upset with us. You upset Ted. He dropped off. So
Oh,
now that Ted can't hear us. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you know that the Olympics, their opening ceremony and their closing ceremony, obviously they're spending tons of money that poor people will never get in Brazil to have these Olympics. But it's, the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies, they're spending tons of money on because that's when they get to show off whatever they want to show off. So, yeah, I mean, I can't remember, honestly, the Ali moment where he lit the flame, that was a great moment. I didn't see it. I don't remember ever watching, well, let me take that back. I do remember Maria Sharapova bringing in the flag for Russia. And I don't mean that because
you do.
I just mean I must have been watching the opening ceremonies because I remember that.
I remember the Ali moment, but that's about it.
Bring in for Germany. I remember that. I remember seeing that, so I must have seen it. But I don't remember ever making a point of, well, it's the Olympics opening night, I'm going to watch this. And closing ceremonies, like, it's cool. I maybe I'm like everybody else, like you, who actually tunes in to watch the sports instead of the spectacle that is the opening and closing ceremonies.
Well, to me it would be like I'm going to watch the Super Bowl for the halftime show. It's like, seriously? And this is an athletic competition. It's not a frickin' off Broadway, ridiculous amount of flash and sizzle crap. I mean, if you like it, that's great. It's so overhyped. It's insane. It's like I would be really cool with them just marching in. That's cool. The athletes coming in. That's it. You're done.
Marching. By marching, I know what you mean, sir. You mean duck stepping in.
Duck stepping?
No?
That would be awesome if they duck walked in.
Would not be. That's what the Nazi
Party
did.
Oh, yes. No. The American delegation must duck walk in. That would be beautiful.
Well, next time, yes. When we have President Trump, he'll force us to duck step in. But it sounds like Ted's with us now. Ted has held out. He has done his camp chancellor impersonation and impersonation. I just made up a word, but impersonation. He held out for the first several minutes of the show. We did not rework his contract because, honestly, Ted can't. There's no space for us to rework your contract, but I appreciate what you're trying to do. And hopefully you come back now and you cause Adrian Peterson to fumble and you win us a game late when there's that fumble with the Lions. So how are you, Theodore Homer Hicks?
I'm just... Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Loud and clear? Wait.
Yes.
Oh, I can hear myself. Okay. No, I'm just here to fulfill my contract and make a few comments, and then I'm just going to also... so I should mention today that I will not be attending the Olympics either. I'm backing up.
Hey, let me just interrupt Ted for just a second, because he's talking. It's not loud to us, but I can tell you're talking louder. You're having to forcefully talk louder for whatever reason. Maybe it's a technology issue. He almost sounds like the guy between rounds of a boxing match, where it's like, oh, the boxing match, and then you get to that guy who's like, oh my God, and then it would go back to the boxing match itself. It's awesome, actually. So I'm not sure if you're having tech issues, Ted. You sound fine. Just doing that live on air. You sound perfectly fine.
Extremely loud, or like I'm just trying to talk louder than what I usually talk?
It just sounds like you're trying to talk loud, but you sound perfectly fine.
Oh, okay. So
extremely loud and incredibly close.
All right, I'm good.
You're not loud.
You
but seriously, you're not loud. But
no.
You know, sometimes I wish you were more of a cuddler. So, but Ted, are you going to watch the opening ceremonies? Do you ever make a point of watching the opening ceremonies?
Am I un-American if I say the last time I watched the opening ceremony was Muhammad Ali?
Well, you're not more un-American than Todd and I, because we just said we haven't watched it in a long time. So
yeah, I watched some of it in China, and it's like, ugh, geez, come on, really? No, you're not an American, Ted.
Some of it in China? You were in China?
In China?
I was in China. Yeah, I was in China.
Okay.
I was working on a deal for one of our candidates.
Anyway, Todd also worked for the Kaiser in the early 1900s. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can I just make one comment? Blog Talk's Direct Connect sucks. I just want to put it out there.
Sponsored by the Olympic Games of Rio.
I could see you for about slightly less than a minute show up like a few minutes into the show, and then you fell off, and I was thinking, okay, it's not Ted. It's actually he's trying to connect, and he's not being able to connect, so it's kind of weird. But, you know, we all know the joys of Blog Talk Radio and how it's always 100% perfect in how it runs.
I want to insert a comment here before we continue on our Olympic discussion. This is from Olympic.org/Rio-2016. The Rio 2016 Games will provide the best possible environment for peak performances. Athletes will enjoy world-class facilities. Like, I can't even read it without laughing.
We're not in Brazil. You don't have to sell us on the facilities. We know they suck.
Maybe Blog Talk got the contract to set up the facilities, because oh my God, what a train wreck this thing! Worse than a train wreck, because I think there's more dead bodies in the water than there would be if there had been a train wreck right over the water. I mean, wow. I'm not sure what point the countries get at it, because we know countries lose money on the Olympics, right? We know Russia lost money. You're building all this infrastructure that you're spending this money on, and then you don't get a lot back for it, right?
Nope.
So what is the point of hosting the Olympics? And I'm not saying that rhetorically. I really don't know.
I know.
What is the point?
That's why I didn't answer, because I don't know what the point is. I mean, world pride of showing how poorly you can distribute your wealth. Like, I mean, God.
Yes, but now we look at Russia and we don't like. I mean, you know, the United States, where it's ingrained in us, at least of people of our generation, that we should not like Russia because they're evil and whatever. They're not, but that's what we're supposed to think. But you know, with Russia, it's like even worldview. I don't think it's done much for them that they hosted the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And Brazil,
I doubt
they already look bad.
And I doubt that it ever did much for us. I mean, if people don't like you, people are not. The Olympics is not going to change you into a shining beacon of hope for humanity. You know, it's just, oh wow, you guys have a lot of money. Good for you. The fact that doctors, I read just yesterday, doctors for the World Health Organization were advising athletes to keep their mouths closed in the water sports to avoid. It's like, oh, okay, so that's the only way water could possibly enter your body is through your mouth. Are they taping their ears shut? Are they super gluing their noses? I mean, wow.
Okay, Todd, I'm sorry, I got to disagree with you. What the doctors are sports scientists. What they're saying is keep your mouth closed while you're swimming, because you won't retain any water, therefore you won't weigh as much, and it'll give you a little bit more speed.
That must be it. Actually, with all the pollutants in there, you'd think you would have increased fuel, and it would. Oh, that's probably it. You're gonna test for PED, positive for PED, if you actually drink any of that crap.
Right.
What a hellhole.
It's like, keep your mouth closed, but if you're Russian, especially keep all your orifices closed, because...
Too late for one of them.
So we're 15 minutes into the show. Of course, we have Jeffrey Paternostro coming up in 15 minutes to talk Mets and more. Just one sport each you guys are looking forward to watch. I mean, we're all looking forward to watching the basketball team and see how they do. But maybe off the beaten rails, Ted, is there one sport you're looking forward to watching that maybe you don't normally watch on a day-to-day basis?
Well, that's a trick question, because I was going to say wrestling.
Ted watches that in his backyard.
This is actually, and I am George Winston. I have been told to tell everyone wrestling was never a part of the Olympics. It was all just propaganda. Todd, besides wrestling, is there one you're looking forward to watching?
Actually, I always like watching the decathlon. Even though a lot of times by the time they're running the last three events, it's over, which is kind of a problem with the way they do the scoring, but that's just how it is. And I do want to see a couple athletes in particular, see how they do. I want to see if Mr. Bolt continues to be his namesake, and I want to see if the weed smoker, who is now a parent, can actually win another gold. That would be pretty interesting if he can pull that off. And I think the pools are actually relatively safe, so I don't think anyone's going to die in the swimming competition. So I think Mr. Phelps will be okay there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
God.
And I'm looking forward to watching Rugby Sevens. It's not full rugby is 15, but Rugby Sevens is really cool. It's the first time in the Olympics. My daughter played rugby in high school. I think it's a great sport. I think it's great to watch. So I'll be interested to. The United States has no chance in winning, but I'll be interested in watching that play out. So, moving on to politics. Of course, we saw the Democratic National Convention this week following the Republican National Convention last week. DNC tried to separate itself by being a lot more positive. Everybody that came out was, this is why we should vote. This is how we should help America. The Muslim American. I even hate saying that phrase, but that's what they were trying to show us. Muslim American military person who helped, who was a true hero of the country. Katy Perry looked really hot. So the DNC, did you guys? What's your take from if you watched the DNC, which I watched it about 100,000% more than I watched the RNC. I will say I thought Cory Booker's speech was good, not historic as my father-in-law said, but I thought it was great. I thought Elizabeth Warren was great. I thought Bernie was good, and I thought Bernie had to go above and beyond to say, "Stop trying to vote for me. Help us entirely."
Yeah.
But and I thought he did his best, because what else is he supposed to do? He can't control the minions, which is what they've become. They have their own mind. It's like you're not, as Bernie said. Look, you can not vote for Hillary, but what's the other choice? You want Trump as president? That's not good. So anyway, what do you guys think about the DNC?
Go, Ted.
Okay. So 2 weeks ago, I did watch the RNC. I watched maybe 2 nights of it. And compared to this week, I watched the DNC. I watched, I would say, roughly about 3 nights of it. Wednesday night was your heavy hitters with, POTUS, Biden, Mayor Bloomberg, all the above coming out to just, smack, I would say POTUS hit a grand slam. The scene at the end was great for the way it ended Wednesday night. Thursday night was phenomenal. For someone that might have been on the bubble or hedging, I think after seeing it, you only have one choice. You really only have one choice. I like the presentation. I didn't like last week's doom and gloom of, hey, the whole place is going to hell and it's just going to, we're just all going to die. But out of everyone, of all the great speakers, I liked fellow New Yorker, billionaire Mike Bloomberg, because here you go. You got billionaire to billionaire, or at least so-called billionaire, and he just laid it out there. He just laid it out there, and we're going to see. I mean, I think it was a great launching point for the DNC and for Hillary's campaign, because now it's a sprint. I think it's 100 days or 101 days left, and it's, there's a lot that can happen, but I think they have a really good start from this point on, from this sprint on to November 8th. Now, with the multiple hacking requests, or the happenings that
right.
are going on, that's not good. That's really not good, and it just really teaches all of us. I was in a situation where I was part of a litigation hold where my emails were grabbed, and so I kind of understand when I hear emails were released or your emails are being scanned through. Part of my 9 to 5, I have to do stuff like that. But there was a situation in the past where I was as I said before, my emails were scrutinized. So I just hope people aren't saying the wrong things after all of this. I hope people aren't saying the wrong things in email that will, get this campaign floored. We just, like I said, you got to hope for the best. You really hope for the best. And the one thing, Elizabeth Warren, loved her. I love watching her on the internet, her speeches. She just didn't seem to have a lot of energy. And I don't know if it's because she came after Michelle on, I believe, Tuesday night or Monday night. She just didn't seem, that fire, that spark, didn't seem to be there, even though she drove home the point. But overall, great convention. One honorable mention, as much as we dislike Justin Bieber, I don't know if you guys heard, the RNC offered him $5 million for a 45-minute set, and he declined it 2 weeks ago. So
it's Canadian.
I think it's more on the fact that...
Was it Ted Cruz that offered him the money?
I just think it's the fact that Never Trump movement, as crazy as this place is, I think that's really going to pick up the steam, and that's I'm going to stop talking right now. Todd.
I saw about as much of the RNC as Ted did, probably a couple nights, mixed in. I actually saw very little of the Democratic convention. It's been a very hectic week. Of course, I've followed what happened, in the next day, et cetera, and heard clips of speeches, et cetera. I think Ted is a closet trumpet. Ooh, a trumpet, get it? That because he's calling out Pocahontas for being low energy, and that she was probably bleeding out of her wherever, that she was so low energy. So we know what's going on with you, Ted. You hate her.
I thought Warren was great.
The whole thing with the emails, and it's hacked, and obviously there are major problems for this going on. However, no one has disputed what was in the emails. I mean, W. Wasserman Schultz did resign, et cetera, and there is a lot of poor behavior in there. But there's no proof that it was rigged, which a lot of people are saying, which is ridiculous. I mean, there are some really unfortunate and /stupid comments made by some DNC staffers who have apologized for those and possibly resigned. But we're not talking about things that Hillary Clinton said compared to the things that Donald Trump trumpets as loudly as he can, like, oh, Russia should hack her emails. And then his everybody in the Republican Party says, no, that would be a bad thing, including Mike Pence is smart enough to say, no, we would never say that. And then the next day, if they finally pound it into Trump's head, you better somehow make up for this. And instead of apologizing, he just says, oh, that was sarcasm. Like, sure didn't come across like that, you bogus sack of brown and orange crap. Oh, my God. What a stool sample he is.
Let me say that I think the problem with the emails is that it kind of ripped the scab off the scar. and a lot of people are already thinking, oh, I'm not voting for Hillary because of all the email scandal, and then even if it wasn't Hillary involved, it's still more emails, and I think that's the problem with the email stuff. No, I thought Warren was good. I saw as much as I possibly could have of the DNC. Obviously, I lean left. That's not a surprise to anybody listening to the show. I thought Bernie was good. There were no speeches. Obama's speech was awesome, but it's like one of those guys. It's like, okay, if somebody's going to give a eulogy at your own funeral, who you're going to pick? It's going to be, Barack Obama. So I mean, that wasn't a surprise. I thought Biden did really well. I thought Hillary did well. I still don't know if she comes across as. It's funny because she really is kind of a common person as far as how she grew up, but it's never come across that since she's been in the public eye, and so therefore it's never ever going to come across. So I mean, maybe they need to address that in a different way. But yeah, I mean, I like your point, Ted, as far as Bloomberg to Trump. I mean, it's kind of like that Pac-Man thing. It's like Bloomberg could eat Trump. I mean, he has a lot more money than Trump. So
Trump's not even one of the top 10 developers in New York.
No, he's
not even in the top 10.
Well, the sad thing is, I think if Bloomberg were to run for president, he would probably run as a Republican. I mean, he's moderate.
Right. He would.
But in this day and age, Bloomberg couldn't get either party, and a lot of people probably see him just from the gun rights thing as being more left, and he's not. But Bloomberg actually, I haven't voted for a Republican in a long time. It's not because I'm not one of these people. I'm not going to vote for a Republican. I have sometimes problems voting for a Democrat because I don't feel like they're left enough for me. But Bloomberg is a guy, I could see myself. Well, if I don't really like the Democratic nominee, maybe I could see myself because I feel like he's an okay guy. I feel like he weighs the issues. I feel like he's done a lot of really good things for New York City, which is a bigger city than a lot of states. So that says a lot. I think Bloomberg's okay, and I think it's just sad that it's the day and age we live in where he has no chance of getting the nomination from either party. So, that kind of sucked, I thought. But anyway, besides politics, of course, we're going to be joined by Jeffrey Paternostro in just a few minutes to talk more baseball. I do have a dummy of the week, and I know we don't have this on the outline, but I'll make this really quick because it's a dummy who's been a dummy for a long time, Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL. This past week, league attorneys have filed a letter, and this is from the AP, in response to Bettman's letter to Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal with U.S. District Judge Susan Richard Nelson, who's presiding over a class action concussion lawsuit, CTE, lawsuit against the NHL. Bettman's 24-page response to Blumenthal was dated Friday. He said research on the link between concussions and chronic traumatic, CTE, remains nascent. And this is why this guy is running the NHL into the ground. The confusion in the press about CTE, this is a quote from Gary Bettman, no doubt further fueled by plaintiffs' counsel in the NHL litigation, relates to the simple fact that none of the brain studies conducted to date, can, as a matter of accepted scientific methodology, prove anything about causation. When you get hit in the head, it could cause long-term issues. Gary Bettman, your NHL commissioner. So, Ted.
Wow.
Horrible segue for Paternostro, and I apologize to Jeffrey, but will you introduce our wonderful guests?
Sure. And we are now happy to have Jeffrey Paternostro, who writes for Baseball Prospectus and a few other wonderful organizations. Jeffrey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again.
Hey, no problem. Well, as you know before in the past, I'm the Mets homer, so I'm going to get into it really quick. I'm glad to have you on talking about Mets. As I'm sitting here looking at my 4, 5, 6 different Mets caps that I have by my desk. So tell me this, because this hasn't been answered. How do the Mets fill the Dark Knight's rotation spot? I mean, we've seen Verrett, but we can also see he's not that answer. But is there a possibility? Is there an option? How do the Mets actually fill Matt Harvey's rotation spot?
Terry Collins has said it's going to be Logan Verrett. Like, he's the guy. He's going to get the ball every fifth day. And there's, a little under 48 hours or so a little over 48 hours or so until the trade deadline. And there hasn't really been a ton of interest in a starting pitcher, at least that's been reported. You've heard the rumors about Jonathan Lucroy. You've heard the interest in a relief arm, whether that's Jeremy Jeffress or Daniel Hudson or Joe Smith. They're all names that have been bandied about. But it sure looks like the Mets rotation is the Mets rotation for the rest of the season, or at least until Zach Wheeler can get on a major league mound.
Gotcha. So as we continue in talking about the Mets rotation, and we've noticed from last year to this year, outside of the Dark Knight, will the Mets rotation hold up for the remainder of the season?
I don't see any reason why not. Steven Matz is probably not going to be April and May. Steven Matz, he's pitching with a large bone spur, bone chips, some sort of floating object in his elbow that are going to need to be taken care of in the off season. And you've seen he's not throwing the slider as much recently. The command's a little shakier than it has been, but he's been fine. He's pitched kind of like a number 3 starter. I think he'll be okay for the rest of the season. Now, if they fall out of the race more than they have already, there's a chance maybe a month from now, 6 weeks from now, they decide to shut him down early to get that elbow problem taken care of. Noah Syndergaard, again, pitching through elbow issues. This is going to become a theme as I go through all of these pitchers. But he's looked very good. Even when he's a little bit off, he seems to muddle through 6+ innings, 8 strikeouts, a couple of runs. Those are like his bad games. Bartolo Colon is certainly and always Bartolo Colon. You know what you're getting there. Jacob deGrom's been better recently. He still doesn't have maybe the top-end velocity from last year, but I think he's still a bona fide number 1 starter, a guy that's going to give you quality innings every time out. And Logan Verrett is what he is. He's a number 5 starter, maybe a number 6 starter that's been pressed into action on a team with less starting pitching or less quality starting pitching. He probably wouldn't stand out as much, but he's going to be there. I'm not particularly worried about pitcher health going forward. Obviously, something can still happen in the next 2 months, but the Mets starting pitching will give them a chance to win baseball games as they have all year. Now, they're not winning them so much anymore, and there's a variety of reasons for that, but I don't think it's the starting pitching.
Hey, Jeffrey, this is Todd, and you're talking about that you expect them to continue winning, at least based on the rotation. The big question, of course, is are they going to make the playoffs? What do you think the chances are on that?
Well, people will keep going back to how similar this season feels to 2015. They're kind of in the same spot as we head into the trading deadline, minus Wilmer Flores crying on the field. The offense hasn't been great. The starting pitching has been quite good. The bullpen, up until this past week, was doing its job, and this was a team that's built to win 3-2, 4-3 games. They have to win those games, and this week they haven't been. It happens. I don't know if it's a blip for Familia or something more troubling long term. He's been shaky all season. The problem is, if you look at last season, I think they were 3 games out going into the National Series on August 1st. This year they're 2.5 out of the wild card, I think, as we talk right now. It was very clear last year the Mets and the Nationals were competing for 1 playoff spot, and they had 9 games left with the Nationals at this time last season. So you can really look at it and say their destiny was in their own hands. If they played well down the stretch, if they beat up on the bad teams, and their schedule's very soft this year in August and September as well, they were going to have a shot at the division. This year, it's however you want to phrase it. It's 4 teams for 1 spot or 5 teams for 2 spots, depending on how you feel about the Dodgers. That makes things complicated. They don't just have to outplay one team. They sort of have to outplay 3 different teams, none of whom they play a ton down the stretch other than the Marlins. So they can play very well. They can play probably 600 baseball the rest of the way like they did last year, and it makes it a little more complicated. The other problem is there's not a Yoenis Cespedes out there right now to bring in and sort of be the catalyst for that offense. Jonathan Lucroy is a very good major league hitter. You consider the fact that he's a catcher, he's probably one of the 4 or 5 best catchers in baseball right now.
Right.
Is he that guy? I don't know. Are they going to part with the pieces to get Jonathan Lucroy? That I don't know either. So it's tricky. There's not any obvious moves, and even the Cespedes move you didn't think at the time would have the impact that it did necessarily. It was a nice move at the time. I liked it. But I didn't expect him to post a 1,000 OPS down the stretch, and I don't think that guy is necessarily out there. So I don't have a good answer here. I think it's going to be trickier than it was last season.
Yeah, I don't think Cespedes is expected to have a 1,000 OPS like he did last year either. And we've been talking a lot about the trade deadline. What do you think is going to happen by the deadline? Do you think the Mets are going to buckle? They're going to trade more prospects for some short-term help?
I think they'll probably add a reliever. I don't think it will cost them anything super significant. It'll be like a Tyler Clippard or Addison Reed type trade or type package that they're sending out. So it'll be a guy maybe that they don't want to add to the 40 next year or don't really have a spot for, like Tomas Nido, who's a catcher in advanced A for them right now, or maybe a back-end starter they don't really have room for, like Gabriel Yanoa or Robert Gazelman, something like that. So I don't know if it's going to be Jeremy Jeffress or Joe Smith to sort of take a 7th or 8th inning role. Now, that's something that contending teams do at the deadline. The Mets are still a contending team. The Pirates have been listening on Mark Melancon, and they're in the same sort of area of the standings as the Mets right now. And the market, as we've seen in the Chapman deal, the Yankees asked for Andrew Miller. If they put somebody like Addison Reed on the market, would they get something ridiculous back for him without impacting them too much, at least in 2017? Yeah, maybe that they sort of have some flexibility in terms of, soft selling or something like that. I don't see Alderson doing that, though. I think they will stand pat before they sell, but I do think they'll probably add a small piece.
And again, we're talking to Jeffrey Paternostro about the Mets. So I have to ask this question before, and this is off the beaten path, but I'm a big soccer fan, and these other two guys really aren't. You're a big fan of Sheffield Wednesday, right? And so,
yes.
What do they have to do to move back up into Premier League?
I think they did the right thing over the summer. They kept it. They got to the playoff finals last year and lost a heartbreaker to Hull. Though I had a bad feeling about even going into the game because Hull was a bad matchup for them with their sort of strength and size in the midfield, and they bossed them in the game at the KC earlier that spring. But they've added another proven striker in Stephen Fletcher, the former English international who was with Sunderland and Marseille in recent years. They added Abdi from Watford as they continue to be Watford North, who's a proven Premier League player and gives them another attacking option in the midfield. They just really need to sort of strengthen the spine of the team a little bit more. Their captain, Glenn Lubin's center back's going to be out for 6 weeks or so with I don't remember if it's an ankle or a knee issue. But he's had some leg problems in recent years, so they need another young center back, I think, to pair with Tom Lees, who's already a Premier League quality defender, and add a little more strength in the midfield. But they've looked good in preseason. There's a lot of goals in the team. I could see Fernando Forestieri, who can play up top or out wide, having a 20-goal season for them this year. And then it's just the championship's a tough division. It's so competitive top to bottom every year. You have Villa and Newcastle coming down from the Premier League last season. They're going to be a very, very tough team just because of the quality in the squad already and the money they're able to spend that Sheffield Wednesday doesn't have. They open their season next Sunday against Villa, in fact, which I think will be a good test. But it's just staying healthy, sort of making it through the season intact. It's a big squad. Carlos Carvajal, their manager, practices squad rotation, so he's done a pretty good job of keeping them healthy. But it's just a grind. It's like anything else. You got to grind out results in this league, and you just got to find a way to win 1-0 at home every once in a while in a tough game, or grind out draws on the road, get points. You got to be able to go to Norwich and get a point, that kind of thing. And we'll see if that was a problem for them at times last year, and they were a little shaky, sort of finishing out the season to get the playoff spot. But I'm fairly confident coming into the season that they'll at least be in the mix for the playoffs and have a shot at the top two.
Well, I appreciate you you giving me a soccer answer.
I will always.
We don't get to talk that.
I'm always a little disheartened that I don't get called on to radio and podcast to talk soccer more than I do. So I'm always happy when I can.
Yeah. Well, no, I really appreciate it, and that was a great answer actually. And you spoke of grinding it out, which is getting back to baseball. That's exactly what baseball is, a 162 game season. You mentioned Familia earlier. It's not like he's blown saves. It's just he's been a little wonky, and lately he's walked a lot more players or a lot more batters than normal. Is it just a stretch he's going through where he's not as good as normal, or is he getting tired?
I think it's a confluence of a lot of factors. Actually, Corinne Landry wrote about this at Fangraphs recently, sort of trying to figure out what's going on. And this really started, you can even go back, I think, to last October against the Royals specifically. The velocity was down a little bit, and he wasn't throwing his splitter that much. Now, that's November in the cold after a long season. You kind of expect guys to be a little gassed, and maybe the top-end stuff not to be there. We saw that from Jacob deGrom in the World Series as well. He probably gassed a little bit in Game 2. Never pitched that much in a season. Familia had never pitched that deep in a season. And in the spring, his velocity was down a little bit too. But again, it's spring training. You don't worry about that so much. And it was back to normal in April. But he goes through periods where he just loses his mechanics for whatever reason. And this was true in the minors. It was true when they were trying to develop him as a starter early in his major league career. It's a very simple delivery, but he has trouble repeating it well. He gets a little out of sync. And that can lead to some of the command issues we've seen recently. He's also still not throwing the split. I suspect there's, if not an elbow issue, and he has had elbow issues in the past. He missed most of the 2013 season with sort of generic elbow, tricep soreness type stuff. I assume he was MRI'd at some point. Obviously didn't need Tommy John, but he's had some arm issues in the, not the recent past, but in the past certainly. And the split finger can put additional stress on the elbow because of the way you stretch the fingers. And he throws it hard. He was throwing 95-mile-an-hour split finger fastball. That is not normal. We've also seen his slider. He threw the sort of the classic Dan Warthen slider last year. It's changed shape a little bit, and he casts it a little more. It's a slower. It's more of a almost sort of a downer short curve. So I wonder if he's sort of compensating for some sort of injury issue or some sort of pain or discomfort in his arm in that respect as well. He still has a top-of-the-line elite sinker, so he can get out of trouble. He puts guys on, but he also gets double play balls. And that's worked out well for him. It's a tightrope he's walked all season. It happened to not work for a couple games this week. That's going to happen. You put a guy in enough one-run games, eventually he's going to blow one. It's just you're always sort of a walk, a bunt, and a bloop away from blowing a save. I'm not too worried about the blown saves. I'm more worried about the overall shape of the performance. And there's also, he's been overworked. There's some bad luck in there. It's, like I said, a confluence of factors. He went through a little blip like this around the All-Star break last year. Now does he rally? Do they fix something in the next 2 months and he goes back to looking like Familia? It's possible. I don't think he's in danger of losing his job. They may need to tap the brakes on his usage patterns a little bit. He's looked more like the 2014 version, the 2015 version, but that happens. The other thing you have to consider with this kind of profile, guys that throw this hard, hard throwing late inning relievers, generally don't have a huge shelf life. Mariano Rivera being the obvious exception, but even, Rivera by mid to late career was throwing more 92 to 94 cutters than mid 90s and above. And it was such a devastating pitch. Familia, I don't want to comp him to Rivera, but has a similar quality fastball, although it's a very different pitch. It's a two-seam sinker as opposed to the cutter. But he can dominate or at least be a successful closer with that one pitch, if not to the Rivera levels or even to his 2015 levels. But, guys like, we've seen it from Craig Kimbrell a little bit this year. These kind of guys can have 3 or 4 year shelf life. David Robertson's another good example. It's not a lot of bullets, but it's a lot of, you're pitching, trying to throw 98 every day. It can have a deleterious long-term effect, or even a short-term effect in this case.
Yeah, and you mentioned Rivera, who even blew 3 straight saves at one point in his career. So it's not the end of the world if somebody goes through a little bit. I mean, he did. It's one of those things. It's like, who blew 3 straight saves during their career, and he's one of those guys.
Closers are like kickers. You're only, if you miss the last field goal, that's all I ever remember.
That's right. I only remember the Vikings kicker. I'm a Seahawks fan. So anyway, the Mets had huge expectations going into this season, and a lot of it was based, of course, on last season, which was rightful. I mean, they have great starting pitching. But how do you feel like the Mets have dealt with the pressure going into the season, or is it just a matter of, they were never the team that they were expected to be this season?
I thought they were the division favorite coming into the year, for whatever that's worth. I thought the Nats would be right there, certainly. I didn't think they were a slam dunk to win the division. I didn't think they were nearly as large a favorite preseason as the Nationals were last year. And it's not a compelling answer. It's not going to make Mets fans sleep better at night, but they had a lot of injuries. That happens. David Wright, could you have predicted David Wright missing most of the season because of a back issue? Yes, obviously. Travis d'Arnaud is not the most durable player in the world. The due-to-back injury was unfortunate. So that's, your first baseman, your third baseman, and your catcher, 3 of the guys you would have predicted to be among the 5 best hitters on your team probably, all have missed significant time this year. That's tough to overcome over a 162-game season. That's a lot of baseball games those guys have missed. And I think it is, to a certain extent, as simple as that. And Matt Harvey, throw in Matt Harvey, certainly not pitching like Matt Harvey. Have they underperformed? Yeah, probably. And we can talk about the runners in scoring position thing if you really want to. I don't know how much of that is just a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of statistical noise. They're not a high batting average team in general, and that was certainly going to be a thing coming into the year. So the fact that they're hitting whatever it is, around 200 with runners in scoring position, they're only hitting 230 or so as a team. That's not like a huge gap or something that just can't happen over 100 games of baseball. It's incredibly painful and obnoxious to watch, I will concede. I would never suggest you not be frustrated by that, but I don't know if it's meaningful. I don't think the team's pressing. I don't think they're chokers. I just think that it's not a high batting average team, and they're not hitting home runs right now, and that's a problem.
Jeffrey, it's Ted again. Is there a position switch in Travis d'Arnaud's future?
They keep talking about it, like in spring and stuff. Moving catchers to anywhere other than first is difficult. He's a pretty athletic guy. Could he play some corner outfield? Yes, but they really don't have a shortage of outfielders right now. There's a reason he's been mentioned, I think, so prominently in the Jonathan Lucroy trade discussions, because, well, for one, if Jonathan Lucroy's here, there's not really a spot for Travis d'Arnaud, but also because there's, he's 28, he's never played a full season at catcher, is what it comes down to. At a certain point, I don't know if he's injury-prone per se. A lot of these injuries have been sort of freak things, though you could say the shoulder this year is more of a catching-related injury, but he's fouled a ball off his foot. He hurt himself sliding into second, little things like that. He doesn't recover quickly from injuries, which is, I think, a separate issue and the more pressing issue. You'd like a guy you can count on for 110 games behind the plate, and Travis d'Arnaud's not that. Now, you trade him to the Brewers, and maybe the Brewers put him in left field, and he's able to stay healthy, and all of a sudden he's, a 280 hitter with 25 home runs, like the potential has always been there, sure, and that's the risk you run, but the Mets don't really have a spot for him, and he's not really hitting right now.
Now, you mentioned Jonathan Lucroy. Wouldn't that be a definite upgrade to help manage these young pitchers? Because after a certain point in time, don't you need, how do I put this? And Travis has been great for, when he's in the lineup, but allowing these pitchers to progress and get better and be, much more seasoned with a much more seasoned catcher. Wouldn't you say that's a total upgrade that, Sandy and the Wilpons would have to consider?
Jonathan Lucroy is a great catcher. His reputation, both defensively and working with pitchers in the game, is incredibly high. He's an excellent hitter. He had sort of a stealth MVP candidate a couple of years ago. I mean, I will say that Travis d'Arnaud caught all these guys in the minors for the most part. He's caught these guys for the last couple of years, and really the development end of things should be on Dan Warthen, Ricky Bonas, and your roving pitching instructors and guys like that. Now, there's been a little bit of, I know there's some miscommunication or some sequencing disagreements between him and Syndergaard, which is why Rene Rivera has sort of become Syndergaard's personal catcher recently. I think in a vacuum, are they more comfortable with Rene Rivera catching these guys and calling games? Probably, but then you have to play Rene Rivera every day, which is not a solution. And look, I think Travis d'Arnaud's defense gets slagged a little bit too much by Mets fans. Like, his arm's okay. It's not great. He's not Yadier Molina controlling the running game, but the Mets pitchers have their responsibility there for not holding guys on so well. He's at least as good at framing pitches as Lucroy is. They're both near the top of the scale for that. But what it comes down to is, Jonathan Lucroy is a better catcher than Travis d'Arnaud for the rest of this year and for 2017, certainly. He's not getting paid really anything by baseball standards relative to his performance. If they can put a package together for him that's, I don't know, the one I suggested on Twitter was Travis d'Arnaud, Dilson Herrera, and a pretty good prospect. I think they'll do that. Brewers fans were not happy with that at all, by the way, and neither were Mets fans, so I think that might make it maybe a more fair trade, but we'll see. I think Lucroy does get moved before the deadline. There's other teams that need him. The Indians might be more willing to part with a top-end prospect like Bradley Zimmer or Clint Frazier than the Mets are with Ahmed Rosario, because I don't think the Mets are trading Ahmed Rosario. But, yeah, I mean, it's a move that makes them better right now for the wild card race and makes them better in 2017. I think it's something worth considering. I will say the last time I talked with Sandy Alderson, which was a few weeks ago at our Baseball Prospectus Day at Citi Field. He specifically said he was asked about something similar to this around sort of trade deadline discussions in general. He doesn't really look at future seasons. He looks specifically for rentals for the most part, or at least guys with flexibility like Addison Reed, who they could have non-tendered if they really wanted to. Because if he's looking to upgrade the next season's team, he'll do it in the off-season when there's sort of more flexibility, more guys in play. Prices might be a little bit lower, at least discussions might be a little more fluid. There's not a hard deadline. But I think like anything else, it depends on the deal. If they can get a deal together for Lucroy that they like, they'll do it.
Is there any way that Terry Collins doesn't return next season?
Man, I feel like there's been plenty of opportunities over the last 5.5 seasons now that if they wanted to make a move managerially, they could have easily done it without much crowing from fans or the media. Up until really the All-Star break, end of July last year, this was a team that played, probably 50 to 100 games under 500 under Collins. I could go back and do the math. Those guys, eventually those managers get fired. It's just the nature of the game. It's a zero-sum game. You win or you get fired, whether it's the manager's fault or not. And I don't know how much of those teams' issues were Terry Collins' fault. I don't think he's a particularly good tactical manager, but I don't think he also does anything particularly outlandish compared to the rest of not particularly good tactical managers you see across baseball. There was always going to come a time where Terry Collins was not the right manager for this team, and I think we've maybe reached it. There's some stuff in Baseball Maverick too that in 2014 Collins was fairly close to getting fired. I've never really understood the relationship between Sandy Alderson and the rest of the front office and Collins, how exactly that works. He has not been good at bringing along young hitters. Like, they've been very good at developing young pitchers, but you could argue that he has messed with the development of Wilmer Flores, Juan Lagares, and Michael Conforto in the last few years. There's no reason Conforto shouldn't be playing every day right now if he's going to be up. He got jerked around after. Look, it was a bad 2 months, but Walker's had a bad 2 months, and he's moved from, fifth to seventh in the order. Terry Collins likes playing veterans, especially in the lineup. And this is a team that needs to get more from its young players down the stretch. And is he the manager to do that? I mean, he does what he does. At a certain point, Michael Conforto will just be a veteran like Wilmer Flores seemingly is now. Wilmer Flores will play every day while Jose Reyes is hurt. Like, there's some invisible line you cross. The problem is, by the time you get there, Wilmer Flores is not the player that he looked like as a prospect. And that happens. That's one guy. That happens all the time. Michael Conforto suddenly does not look like the guy he looked like as a prospect, or even last October. He was hitting in the 3-hole for a playoff team. Now he's hitting 8th in a lineup that's much thinner than that one was. But maybe in the off season, I don't know what the move is there. This is a front office and a field staff that values continuity. That's why they brought Kelly Johnson back. That's why they're not very aggressive at churning sort of the back end of their 25-man roster. You don't see guys like Josh Smoker. You don't see guys like maybe Gabriel Yanoa getting spot starts today. Instead, they're going to start Bartolo Colon on short rest. They value that continuity. So I think you're going to get Tim Tuffle next year instead of Terry Collins. Does that change things dramatically? I don't know. Every fan base hates their manager, I guess, is the too long didn't read here, except maybe the Giants.
Well, one guy we haven't seen much of for seems like decades almost now is David Wright. Of course, 4 years, $72 million left. Is there any chance of him retiring and the Mets get a little insurance relief out of that contract?
I mean, they're going to get the insurance relief one way or the other. Like, every day he spends on the 60-day, they get a portion of that deal back. I don't know the ins and outs of the specific policy, but they'll save a significant amount over the course of the deal if he never plays a game because of the back issue. Now, that said, is there a way he gets bought out similar to the Kadire thing? It's certainly possible. I think David Wright will do everything he possibly can to get on the field for opening day in 2017. Is that likely at this point between the fused disc in his neck and the degenerative back condition? I mean, at a certain point, he just had a kid. You got to think about your long-term future, your long-term health past the game, and I do worry that he's going to, severely curtail his quality of life in the coming decades by trying to do this. But you don't get to the level that David Wright got to without believing that you can get back on the field, that you can be an elite baseball player no matter what your body is telling you. I don't really worry about the finances of it so much. I mean, he earned that contract at the time. That's the nature of the game for top-level players. He wasn't a free agent, but he would have been, it was a year-out extension, essentially. You're paying a certain amount for past performance. And yes, I'm still not completely convinced that the Wilpons financial issues are behind them, but I don't think the right deal specifically will be a particular pain point for them because it is, I imagine, heavily insured.
And for our last question, we'll move on to a happier player ending. Mike Piazza, where does he rank on your all-time Mets list?
It's funny. I was talking about this on our podcast this week. For whatever reason, Piazza didn't really grab me as a Met. I mean, I loved watching Mike Piazza play. He's one of the best hitting catcher. He is the best hitting catcher of all time. He's one of the 3 or 4 best catchers in Major League history. He's in my mind, a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer. But as like a fan, and sort of the experience of watching those teams. Like, I was a Fonzie guy. I was a John Olerud guy. I loved watching Ray Ordonez play defense. And maybe it's because Piazza was such an established star when he came here. There was sort of like a distancing effect for me as a fan. And he was kind of, he's not, at least when he was a player, he's mellowed a lot since he retired. But at least as a player, he didn't have that sort of, I think, sort of fan friendliness that David Wright, for example, has. That sort of, you don't get that emotional connection from him sort of on the field or through the press. And he writes about this a little bit in his book. He was very sort of singularly focused on baseball at the time. He regrets that to a certain extent. And I think sort of towards the end of his Mets tenure, and certainly afterwards, he's been embraced more by the fan base. But it's great to see his number up there at City. It's long overdue, and I don't want to make it seem like I didn't love watching him play. Sort of that image of him just sort of swinging out of his shoe tops and just driving a laser beam out to right center at City is sort of one of the enduring memories of sort of my teenage and college years. I don't want to downplay that, but I'm still like, I have Fonzie's bobblehead on my desk at work, not Mike Piazza's.
Nice. Well, Jeffrey, your number will be on our wall of fame here at Baseball Beer and Barbecue. Where can our our 6 listeners, where can they find your work, sir?
So I'm a senior prospect writer at Baseball Prospectus. I usually have something, 1 or 2 things up there every week at baseballprospectus.com. I also contribute to our Mets local site, which is mets.local.baseballprospectus.com. I should have a couple of things going up this week. I've seen a lot of the Mets low-level affiliates, Brooklyn and Kingsport, over the last month or so. So I have some reports on players that, might get traded for Jonathan Lucroy in the next 48 hours. Hopefully not, though. Up next week. I also have a podcast for all you kids out there, which is through BP Mets, and you can find on iTunes and the usual spots, and you can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Paternostro.
You were awesome, as before, and as you will be the next time. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, as always.
Yeah, Jeffrey's always awesome. And, he gives the best answers. Personally, all his answers were great, but the Sheffield Wednesday answer was fantastic. And I was thinking, we just got to have him on just to talk soccer at some point. Because we're getting to that season, not just because it's random. We have the real leagues actually start, in August. So I'll say that. But we have European soccer that starts in August and September, and the season starts and goes until well into the spring of next season. So it'd be great to have him on just to talk about that. So, but getting back to baseball, of course, we are up against the trading deadline, which is usually the 31st, but it's the 1st because the 31st falls on a Sunday and the league offices won't be open. So that's why they moved it to the 1st. We've already seen some moves, kind of low-key moves. We saw a move with Todd's Miami Marlins yesterday where they got a couple of pitchers from the Padres. Starting pitchers who don't have great numbers this season, but what's the feeling in Miami? Do they care about it, or is this a good move?
I haven't seen a lot of buzz about it, but it's depth, and that's what you need. No, it's not exactly like they brought in another Jose Fernandez, of course, but hey, it's nice to have depth in the rotation. It's nice to have depth, even if they slot as long relievers. It's like it's nice to see for once that Miami's actually adding talent instead of, time to strip down to our Double-A roster and we're going to expect you to pay money to watch them play, which is what they do about every third year. So, in a way, I almost hope they don't go to the World Series, because if they go to the World Series and they win the World Series, we will be watching Double-A talent in Miami next year. That's just how that idiot plays the game.
That's totally unfounded unless it is historic. Okay, it's just like it happens every time they win the World Series. You're totally wrong. But they did pick up Andrew Cashner and Colin Ray from the Padres. They also received Tayron Guerrero. They did give up Jared Cosart, Carter Capps, Luis Castillo, and first baseman Josh Naylor. Castillo and Naylor are prospects. Capps and Cosart are been with the team. So it'll be interesting. I guess if nothing else, if the fan base doesn't totally believe, hey, if we get to the World Series, they're going to sell all this stuff off. But I mean, if they get to a World Series and win it, I mean, how many teams can say, oh, they've won 3 World Series? I don't want to jump ahead, but how many teams can say they've won 3 World Series in the last 25 years? I mean, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's very good. It's not the Giants, but it's also not the Cubs.
Yeah, true. It's not even the Dodgers or the Mets. I mean, so would you take 3 World Series if you sold the team after? The Mets and the Dodgers aren't going to do that, but if you did, it's an interesting question.
I wish the Wilpons would do it.
Yeah, I mean, you have that season of joy. Not only that season of joy where you win the World Series, but in 20 years you're thinking, well, okay, maybe they sold off the team. We still won the World Series. I have those memories till the day I die of them winning the World Series. I mean, I have until the day I die. I will have the memory of little-known Kirk Gibson, who just got called up from Double-A for that one game, for that one at bat, hit the home run in Game 1 of the World Series in 1988, which is the last time the Dodgers won the World Series. And if they don't win another World Series forever, I will always have that memory. So I mean, it kind of counts.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you said it kind of counts, because that's exactly how I feel about it. Seriously, it kind of counts, because that team won, but then that team is gone because the ownership didn't care.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee they'd win it the next year. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look at the Seahawks.
There's no guarantee.
They win the World Series of the Super Bowl. What the hell was I trying to say there? And then the next year they go back and they could win it. I mean, the Seahawks may only win 1 Super Bowl with that, and it's still going to be memorable.
Of course there's no guarantee you're going to win next year, but you are guaranteeing you're not going to even be in the playoffs when you sell off all of your good players. You're guaranteeing that at
anybody,
best,
and they're not going to make the playoffs.
You're going to be mediocre.
No, I'm just
they're not.
But they got the chance.
They're not.
They got a chance. They didn't decide to turn themselves into the Padres. It's like things happen. But going into the season, Ted had every right to expect, hey, we got a good shot at the playoffs. If that had been what the Marlins did after their World Series wins, multiple, he would have said, oh my God, this team blows. I'm going to watch some other team because this team sucks. I got to
interrupt you. I got to bring up the Padres comment, because the Padres comment, what in the last 2 years have you not seen where the moves they just made does not guarantee the Marlins will win the World Series? Because the Padres have made stupid moves. Everything they do turns into dust. The Marlins are going to be the best team in baseball for the next 8 years based on this.
Yeah, the Padres are, wow. I'm glad I don't follow the Padres. I guess that's about the best thing you can say, right? Jeez.
For real.
Yeah. 2 teams made big moves in the NL West the last 2 years, the Padres and the Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks currently are in last place, and it's like, what does that say? It says you can't overreact in baseball. You have to build it slowly.
That's a lot of money.
Very true.
That's a lot of money.
The only team that overreacts is the Marlins, and then they win the World Series and they sell everybody off, and then they, 15 years later they win another World Series. I mean, it's kind of weird how it works out. But I mean, I think there are fan bases who would take that, like Ted said, the Cubs would take that. It's like, okay, if we sold off the team, I mean, it's not so bad, I guess. If you haven't won a World Series,
me, it's bad.
I believe they have not won a World Series, right, since King George was in power, the first, and that was the last time they won a World Series.
I believe that's correct. I believe that is correct. At least they occasionally try, though.
I think there's every Mets fan, not just those in Queens either, would take a World Series win and would love for the Wilpons to just go away. So it would be the opposite. Don't trade away the players, trade away the ownership.
That's funny. That's true. And I just got a text saying that the last time the Cubs won a World Series, King Bartman was actually in ruling that time. So, joking. I didn't get a real text. So, no, but, and Todd brought up in pre-pro, Chris Sell, and I think he may have mentioned before Ted was able to join the show, about cutting up the jerseys of the throwback. Right. Actually, I think Chris Sell had a good point. Should he have done it? No. But those uniforms are not, the ones that they were going to wear, those weren't conducive to the elements. It was a horrible idea. He shouldn't have cut it up. But Chris Sell, what would you, Well, Ted, you don't really need starting pitching. But, Todd, if any of your teams, Cardinals, Tigers, Marlins, or the Dodgers, the Dodgers give up for Chris Sale, or the Mariners give up for Chris Sale, I mean, holy hell. I mean, he's worth, the guy's really good. How much would you be willing to give up?
A lot. I don't care that he had a temper tantrum and cut up the uniforms. I mean, that's stupid, and he went way overboard. But like you said, he was making a point. He made it in the wrong way. I think the team was ridiculous to suspend him for 5 games for it. It's like you could try to rearrange the guy's face, and you get less time than that. It's like he cut up some uniforms that he hated. So what? Make him pay for the uniforms, slap him on the wrist, say bad boy, fine him something. How are you helping your team win? Not that it matters for the White Sox because now they suck after that hot start. And when you take out your best pitchers, makes a lot of sense, right? It's like you're basically telling the team, he's right. This team doesn't care about winning. Let's prove it. We're going to take your best pitcher out of the rotation. Okay, perfect. You're proving his point for him. So good job, White Sox. Yeah, I absolutely would take Sale. Why does the guy get angry? Because he wants to win. He wants a good clubhouse environment. Maybe he's wrong in the way he thinks. The whole thing with the kid, which turned out to be what a farce that turned out to be.
Oh God!
And now with the uniforms, but it pisses him off because he wants to win and he doesn't think the organization is focused on winning. Why do you not want that guy? I mean, you would want that guy if he was a mediocre pitcher, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and has been. Yeah, that's the classic thing where you mortgage, just like the Cubs did to get Chapman, sent a lot of talent out to get Chapman, but the window is always small, and is always sliding down to get into this playoffs and to win a World Series. Of course, I'd take Sale.
What if the Cubs got Sale?
Oh, geez.
That would be crazy.
Well, then let's just all pack our bags and go home.
Well, actually, I'm glad you said that because Dennis Green had a comment. He got the wrong team, but I believe this is what he was saying about the Chris Sale trade to the Cubs.
The Bears are what we thought they were. What we thought they were. We played them in preseason. Who the hell takes a third game in a preseason like it's bullshit? Bullshit. We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook.
Dude.
Thanks, Coach.
Greatest.
You gotta wait for the thanks, Coach, at the end of that.
Yeah. That's the best.
The greatest soundbite ever.
Yeah, he got his teams confused. He didn't mean Bears. He meant Cubs. But
he meant Cubs.
That's
yeah.
okay. So, I don't know.
Hey, I got a alternate solution. Do you remember when LeBron James ripped his jersey? You remember when they made him wear those black sleeve jerseys?
Wow. Yeah, I do remember that now that you brought it up, but I would have never remembered it before, I don't think.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, okay, so he ripped his jersey. Did he get fined? No, he didn't get fined. What did they do? They said, okay, LeBron, we're going to get something that's going to be available for you, that's going to fit you and the rest of the team. And, I mean, there's so many different ways you could have played it. I mean, Sale is Sale, but if he's your ace and he's your guy, I just think it sends the wrong message. Yes, Did he act like a child? But come on.
I'm not that good with scissors, first of all, but no, I thought you the point I thought you brought up that I was taking was if Chris Sale gets traded and goes to a different team, or if he goes on and becomes a great White Sox, which he already is, who's going to remember him cutting up these sleeves? It'll be just like a trivial note. It's like if he gets traded to a different team and they go on and he does great things, which he should, and they do great things, it's like nobody's going to remember him cutting up the sleeves. They may remember the White Sox, but who cares about the White Sox? It's Chicago. It's a Cubs town. even if the White Sox, they've won a World Series since the Cubs won a World Series, but it doesn't make them more of a White Sox town. I mean, I feel bad for the White Sox. They're just trying to do what's. I'm joking. I have nowhere to go with this. So Ichiro Suzuki is 2 hits away. He did start last night. He went over. Didn't make a great throw out. He's still a defensive wizard. 2 hits away from getting to 3,000. Pete Rose, of course, came out and said, "Oh, blah blah blah." And Ichiro said actually took it with a source of pride that that Pete Rose was still that prideful about his record, and Ichiro was, combined with Major League Baseball and his Japanese hits, that he was going to eclipse Rose. And Rose made the comment that he didn't think it was right, that Ichiro hadn't earned it in Major League Baseball, and yada yada yada. Ichiro's the better player, but 2 hits away from 3,000. I mean, how many more of these guys are we going to see? Probably not a whole lot. So, Todd, what I think we may have mentioned this before, but what's Miami feel about Ichiro getting that record?
I think it's about the same as any other team where a guy's about to hit 3,000 hits. There are a lot of Ichiro fans there. I mean, it's nothing like it was with the Mariners, of course, but because this is more, he's kind of a rental player, which seems odd for a guy at his age, but that's basically what he is. Hopefully he'll stay with the Marlins. I mean, just recently he said he wants to play until he's 50, and he was not kidding. He really thinks he can play until he's 50. And, you look at some guy, Julio Franco, I think Julio Franco is still playing. It's like there are a few guys who seemingly can just play forever. And of course, he's kind of he is a part-time player at this point, which is fine. But the thing about Ichiro that a lot of people don't think about is he got about a 3.5 year late start compared to anyone else in the 3,000 hit club. Anyone else. That's easily 600 hits. That alone, because he got the latest start of anybody as far as playing in American baseball. And the guy is still going to hit 3,000 hits. That is freaking incredible. And like you said, the throw last night, it's it doesn't measure up to his best throws because his arm isn't as strong as it was then. Of course it's not. But the fact that he is at the advanced baseball age of 1,042 and he can still throw like that, he's still got one of the best arms. It's not what he used to be, but, neither is Ted, other than, the other night. But still a heck of a throw.
Ba-dum-bum.
I kept thinking if he plays till he's 50, he probably won't play enough, and nobody's going to really sign him until he's 50. But if he did play till he's 50, he's only, 1,200 hits away? I don't know. I mean, there's a chance he could pass Pete Rose. But
I can see him playing until he's 45, 46. And, let's say he goes to San Diego. It's like...
Or let's say, let me interrupt just for a second. Let's just say Julio Franco becomes a GM of a team. Go ahead. Sorry.
Then he will play. He will play at least till 49. So, yeah, it'll be fun to see exactly how far he can take it, and really how far a team will let him take it. That's really the point. But why not have some crap team like San Diego, like the Braves, that aren't going anywhere, as at least have an attraction. Oh, I can come see this guy. I can see one of the greatest hitters, because he's one of the greatest hitters ever. Certainly not for power, although like we talked last time, he could be if he wanted to, but this is how he chooses to hit. Why not? Why not have a draw? Hey, I saw this guy, he had 3,375 hits, whatever he's going to wind up with. Pretty incredible. Pretty freaking incredible. I mean, the real question is, do you think he could get 5,000 combined?
If he played till he was 50? Or this year? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's like Pete said, if you count Little League, yeah.
I don't know. No. And it's one of those things where he won't play till he's 50 because somebody's going to play him until he's 50. He's barely playing right now. But, if it wasn't a chance at 3,000, maybe even he wouldn't even be playing with the Marlins. He still does good things, but I don't know if he does enough with that single singles that he hits, and plays good defense. I don't know if that's enough at his age for a team to re-sign him. So we did see two players who went above and beyond, obviously, and made the Hall of Fame this year. Ken Griffey Jr. and I'm not sure how to say this guy, Mike Pizza. I'm not sure. Never heard of the guy.
The Pizza Man.
Anyway,
the Pizza Man.
Okay. So,
I'm here.
But Mike Piazza, obviously, those two made the Hall of Fame. It was the first Mariners player who went in as a Mariners player to make the Hall of Fame. Dave Niehaus, of course, is in as broadcasting. We play his snippet at the end of every show. And I'll say this: it was funny because John Clayton's show, when they had Griffey on Monday, we were talking about Griffey making the Hall of Fame. They played the same snippet we did, so I guess it's just an iconic snippet. But either that or they're listening to our show, so thanks, John. But Ken Griffey made the Hall of Fame, and Mike Piazza went in as a Met. He totally, he's one of these things. He forgot his roots, forgot where he was from, forgot who gave him a chance, forgot really where he made his bones, and went in as a Met instead of Dodger. So no hard feelings, but Mike Piazza's dead to me now. So, but what do you guys think about Ken Griffey Jr. and Mike Piazza before we get into the 2017 Hall of Fame ballot? What do you think about their speeches? If you guys had a chance to watch them,
I have not had a chance to watch either speech. I'll
Piazza
at some
cried.
point.
Piazza did
hopefully,
cry.
Hopefully today, and Griff flipped his cap at the end. I did hear about that a lot, which is awesome. So I can't speak to their speeches. I'll leave that to you gentlemen. It's just fascinating to me that Griffey is the first number one draft pick ever to go to the Hall, which tells you how hard it is to tell about baseball talent. And then the flip side, Piazza was 1,063rd guy picked that year.
As a favorite, Tommy Lasorda. As a favorite,
exactly.
Tommy Lasorda did his father a favor. Again, I just want to say that forgetting your roots and everything, forgetting the guy who drafted you did it as a favor to your father, and you want to join another team. That's fine. Anyway, sorry, Todd. What were you saying?
Yeah, exactly. That the only reason he was drafted at all was as a favor, because Lasorda knew his dad, and here they are, going in the same day in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's just amazing. And great comparable players. It's obviously different positions, but Griffey, obviously one of the best center fielders ever, complete game. And you look at Piazza, and defensively, not the greatest catcher ever, certainly, but the offense more than makes up for it. I mean, my God, didn't he have like 5 seasons with over 30 homers? And every other catcher had like 2. I mean, incredible.
Yeah, I will say this about Piazza. Even as a Dodger, and I don't know how Ted feels about him as a Met, Piazza was not the best defensive catcher ever, but he wasn't the worst.
No.
He was okay.
Exactly. He was far from the worst. I mean, the biggest complaint about him is he didn't throw out a lot of base runners. It's like, okay. But overall, that's really not that important compared to, because we've seen, unless you're letting people steal at a 90% clip, which nobody does, it's really not that big a deal, because there's still a lot of them are still going to be out, and a lot of it, just like Jeffrey was saying, a lot of it's on the pitchers too. I'll take that trade anytime compared to most catchers who are going to hit like 240 with maybe 10 homers a season if you're lucky. For a guy who hits 300 with 25 or 30 homers, yeah, I'll make that trade every freaking day. So pretty awesome that those guys went in the same year.
Okay, Todd, real fast before Ted interjects, I just want to say screw you, because those catchers you were talking about, they belong to the Mariners, and that was rude of you. So, Ted, go ahead.
They belong to everybody.
Ken Griffey Jr. Could we just, we look at his greatness, number one, for what Griffey did to, and that must be Ken Griffey fan club.
Someone right now.
Right now. Thank you, Ken Griffey Jr. No, could you just imagine if this guy never got hurt and was because we had towards the latter part of his career where he was, injury prone. This guy would have cracked multiple records, many more than he did. I'm saying good things, guys. Stop calling. Okay, so
Senior
that's
now.
number one about Griffey. that's one thing about Griffey. You know, it's just natural talent.
Yep.
Natural all around. I mean, all around. Piazza. He's I say without a doubt the greatest Met. A lot of people
Mike Piazza.
I mean,
Good for
him. Jeez, my goodness. Okay, so as you guys mentioned, yeah, defensively he wasn't there, and was there a love fest with the fans? Not so much per se, but this guy, what he meant to New York. I mean, it's been talked about again back after 9/11. What he meant to New York itself, just allowing all of us here to heal with his home run that he hit on September 21st, 2001. It's great that this is happening to Piazza now. I mean, it's kind of strange that he had to wait this long to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, that each year you had to wait for, him to edge closer and closer. But, we're in that day and age of, PEDs and steroids and everything else and,
Right.
talk about it. So that's the only downside to it. I mean, I would like to personally, like to see this guy more active with the team. And it's kind of crazy because he could have went in as a Dodger. He could have. And Lee, I know probably Lee's thinking he should have went in as a Dodger. But I don't know. It's Piazza. We love him. Griffey Jr., nobody better as per straight talent. And both speeches were great. As you know, as you mentioned, Todd, we saw the cap backwards. We were wondering if the bust was going to have the hat, turned backwards. And Piazza is Piazza, I mean, I was here. I attended, was it like a couple of years ago with Piazza, and they're going to be retiring his number, I think, today. But there was, what did they do for him a few years ago? I'm not even sure, but it was the end of the season. They had a big ceremony for Mike Piazza, and it was great. And you could see him starting to embrace the fans more and more. It was just kind of weird. I think a player like that, and these players nowadays, if they aren't embraced by the fans, number one, it's because the expectations are so high. Because as you mentioned before, Lee, he was established. When the trade happened and he got here to New York, it was like, oh, this is Mike Piazza. Okay, great, let's go. So I don't know. I'm glad that he's a Met. He's retired as a Met. He went into the Hall as a Met. And I mean, that's like Junior Griffey turning around saying, "Hey, I'm going to go in." I mean, well, not to that degree, but how would you feel, Lee, if Junior Griffey had said, let's say he played with the Cincinnati Reds maybe 3 or 4 more seasons and went in as a Red? I think you would be doubly crushed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think he would have gone in as a Red at any point because he was really Seattle and he was older. I think you brought up a good point, though. Excellent point with the September 21st home run. I think really that almost cemented. No, I don't mean to make light of 9/11 at all, but I think what he did when the team played and he hit that home run off of Greg Maddux, it kind of cemented the fact that, if he's going to go in the Hall of Fame, he's probably going to go in the Hall of Fame as a Met because it meant that moment for any player means so much to the city. It makes sense. Do I have any hard feelings about Mike Piazza going into the Hall of Fame as a Met? Of course not. That doesn't mean anything. Was he was a great Dodger. I loved when he played with the Dodgers. He's a great player. Deserved to go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, anybody who's going to argue, well, he hit the home. I mean, that was an important humanitarian home run. And right. So yeah, I understand him going in as a Met. Yeah, Ken Griffey Jr. It was funny because there was a lot of talk on 710 ESPN Seattle after Griffey making the Hall of Fame. A lot of the talk surrounded on the guy's really shy. he's not one of these guys who's like, I'm going to just be effervescent with the media. A lot of the points that were made were how great of a teammate he was, which was always underrated. And a lot of times if he had a really good game, the team won, he wouldn't want to talk to the media. But if, say, Jay Buhner were to strike out with the bases loaded, that's when Ken Griffey would say, I want to be the guy you talk to after the game. He tried to take that light off of his teammates and put it onto him, which, I mean, to me that speaks volumes, right? I mean, the guy's already a great player, but if you're trying to make your teammate, Ted's gone Megatron, but if you're trying to take the light off of your teammates and and put it back onto yourself when one of your teammates may have let the team down in one moment, when really it's a team sport, so if your team doesn't win, it's not just one moment, it's tons of stuff. So I thought that was really good. But 2017 Hall of Fame ballot, Mike Cameron, J.D. Drew, Vladimir Guerrero, Derek Lee. Derek Lee had a 46 home run season. I totally didn't remember that. Maglio Ordonez, Jorge Posada, Manny Ramirez, Edgar Renteria, Pudge, Jason Varitek, Tim Wakefield. So that's 2017. So the questions are, Guerrero gets in. Surely he gets in on first ballot. I mean, surely we're not that stupid as a society that he doesn't get in. The question, I guess, is, there's no PD. The guy has extremely good numbers. If anybody's going to get in, if anybody from this list is going to get in, it's going to be Vlad, surely. The question is, what do we think about Manny, who has the numbers, obviously? His career numbers are 312, 411, 585, 555 home runs, but obviously failed 2 drug tests at least. Jorge Posada, and then Pudge. So, your guys' thoughts?
Who else was a holdover of this past season?
Edgar Martinez. He's always the holdover.
Trevor Hoffman.
Edgar Martinez needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I just want to make this point really quickly. 300, 400, 500. The only guy to ever do it and not make the Hall of Fame? Nobody. So, go ahead. What do you guys think about 2017?
Edgar Martinez, obviously, is one of the holdovers. Like you said, Guerrero certainly should go in, but I don't trust the voters to understand that. I honestly don't. I mean, the whole thing about this concept that, there's Hall of Famers and then there's first ballot Hall of Famers.
Right.
That's the one thing I think might hold Guerrero out, is this thing that I was like, you don't deserve the honor. It's like, just look at what the person did, would you? So, absolutely, he should go in. If he does, I don't know. And the thing about the big names on the holdovers, other than Edgar Martinez, Trevor Hoffman, for one, it's closers obviously have not had the greatest time, and because the game has changed as much as it has, I mean the numbers change. He's second in saves all time right now, right? But where is he going to be 10 years from now? And people, voters think about that, and they should. I'm not saying that they should keep Hoffman out for that. They shouldn't, but that's one thing that they do look at. It's very similar to comparing home run numbers of someone who played in the 1900 and 1910 compared to now. It's like, it's a different game. You can't compare that. Those numbers mean completely different things. Like you had said, how many times did Ty Cobb lead the league in homers? 3 times?
Twice.
And, whatever. You liar.
Times.
And it's just, and the numbers look ridiculous compared to now, but if you don't understand the context of the game, if you do, then you realize, oh man, the guy was a great hitter, just like Hoffman was a great pitcher. So Bagwell,
Bagwell's the big. Sorry to interrupt, but Bagwell's obviously the elephant in the room.
Right,
he's
exactly.
The guy who should be
for the same reason as Piazza, people making him wait because of rumors. No tests, just rumors. So rumors. What happens with Bagwell and Manram, definitely. It'll be very weird to see what happens. Not weird, but interesting to see what happens with them. And of course, Bagwell and Manning, like you said, that's a completely different thing. Rumors compared to, we know you did this. So we'll see.
They won't get in. They won't get in. They won't get in.
You don't think Bagwell will get in?
Does he deserve to get in? Does he deserve to get
close.
in?
Oh, I know
He was
that's
close
I know
last
that's
year.
totally different statements. I understand that, but you don't think he'll make it in because of the rumors still?
No, I think it's going to take. That's why I was asking, based on the 2017 class, who was close this previous year. I think the person that was closest would get in over some of the first time ballot, Hall of Famers, because that specific era.
But that's the thing. It was Hoffman and Bagwell and Lee. Do you remember who the third person was? Holdover, the top vote getter. Oh, duh! It's Rock Raines. Rock Raines is the third.
Oh, Tim Raines.
Yeah. And
gotcha.
All three of them should be in.
Yeah.
But you've got direct comparisons with other players. Everyone thinks. I don't think of him as that way, but a lot of the voters obviously think of Tim Raines as Ricky Henderson light. Well, if you're the light version of someone, just like Hoffman is the light version of Rivera, and Bagwell is, there's lots of players you can say he's the light version of that. Well, I don't know. Does he really belong in the Hall of Fame? Well, of course he does.
Of course.
But none of them are, quote, first ballot, which that holds over. Is he a second ballot? Is he a third ballot? So that works against him. It shouldn't, but I think it works against him.
I think the argument was that Bagwell is the watered-down version of Gil Hodges. But so Manny Ramirez, who should still be in the Hall of Fame. Just saying, Tony Perez made it. Hodges should be. So Manny Ramirez, the numbers, this is according to CBS Sports. The numbers, career 312, 411, 585, 555 home runs. Say Manny is one of the best hitters in history and a first-ballot shoo-in, but 2 performance-enhancing drug suspensions. Indifferent defense. Did he play indifferent defense? Yes, but actually extremely accurate arm when he threw from outfield. And Manny being Manny, distractions, which I actually don't think distract. I think that may be a good thing in his case. If you like the guy, maybe you're more willing to vote for him. Means he has close to 0 chance of being elected to the Hall of Fame. So
correct.
I have a question for you. You said he's a distraction, but you said probably be a good thing. How would Manny have played if Joe Madden had been his manager the whole time? I mean, talk about not being a distraction.
I don't know if anybody changes Manny. He's just Manny.
No, I don't think he would change Manny, but I think it would be more accepted, and Madden would be able to incorporate that better. And it's like, and I think teams did a pretty good job of it overall. But it's like, I mean, he would kind of celebrate Manny. He wouldn't be grumbling about blah blah blah.
But he still failed those 2 drug tests. I think if Manny was Manny, he hadn't failed 2 drug tests, then we're talking about.
Oh yeah,
it's a little, so.
The 2 drug tests, I don't know. Who knows if they may hold him out forever. I mean, we've seen the big names that have tested, and McGuire's gone, right? He wasn't even on enough ballots.
Yeah. He's never going to make it, yeah.
So the only way they're going to make it is the Veterans Committee.
It looks like Ted, let me interrupt. Ted, are you a guest on Mr. Controversy's show?
Yes.
Talking about the New York.
The alternate version of me.
Oh, the one who actually calls in on time.
He's a Chicago fan. You're a New York fan. I guess that is an alternate version. When is this happening?
It's happening right now.
Oh. Well, hello. Didn't know I was guesting. I was hosting.
No, it's the alternate timeline version of me.
Pretty awesome.
So you can hear it on Spreaker. When were you a guest on the show?
I was a guest this morning at 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time.
Oh my gosh, that's so early.
Work day.
You know who was also. Just to bring this up, you know who was a guest 24 years ago at the Bedrosian household? Cam. He was born to Steve. He is an Angels middle reliever. He is getting a lot of hits on trade deadlines. Ted, and I don't mean to put you on the spot because Todd and I were like, who? Do you know who Cam Bedrosian is?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, he is Steve Bedrosian's son, we're assuming, because he was born in Georgia 24 years ago. So he's a middle reliever, and his numbers so far this year, he's pitched in 42 games, 38 innings. He's a middle reliever. His ERA is .95. He has 45 strikeouts and 11 walks, and he's given up 1 home run in 38 innings.
And Ted, so you don't feel like we're picking on you because you didn't know him.
No,
neither of us knew him.
As well.
And I said, Lee, what does he do? Pitch in Double-A? And he goes, no, this is his record with the Angels, which is like, how far have the Angels fallen off the map? That it's like, this guy's obviously, pitching tremendously well, and it's like, none of us knows because it's the Angels. The Angels are, who cares about the Angels now? Crazy.
Yeah.
They got Mike Trout, got nothing else.
Yeah, we just thought that was interesting because we're talking about trading deadline. This guy is one of the guys who's getting a lot of rumors, and it was like, Cam Trojan, who the hell is that? It's like, he's Steve's son, and he's putting up these phenomenal numbers. Crazy. So looking at the standings real fast, so we have the Orioles leading the AL East by half a game over the Blue Jays, who are turning into the Blue Jays of old. The Red Sox are a game and a half back. The Yankees, they're over 500, 2 games over 500, 6 back. The Rays, and then the Indians lead the Central by 4.5 over the Tigers. Todd, how do you feel about your Tigers? The Tigers are having a good season. They won 4 straight.
They're in it to win it. Someone had talked about. I hate that phrase so much, because other teams are in it to lose it. Obviously, yeah. The rumors were going around that. Well, do you think they'll trade Verlander? Like, why the hell would you move him? No. That's not going to happen. Maybe they'll move him in 10 years to pick up that hot hitter Ichiro, but no, they're not going to be moving Verlander. Yeah, it makes me happy. That would be pretty awesome. If they're 4 back and we're talking 3 weeks from now, or if they're closer, then I'll be happy. Right now, they still got a lot of work to do. They got a lot of work to do.
7 games over 500 is pretty good. The White Sox 3 games under 500 in third. The Royals, who are schizophrenic, now 4 games under 500. They're back and forth 2-8 in the last 10. The Twins, they're 6-4 in the last 10, and they're 20 games back. The last 3 teams I mentioned all have a way low run differential, all minus 31 or before. The Indians plus 86, and the Tigers are plus 6. So in the AL West, we have the Rangers, who lead the Astros by 4, the Mariners by 7.5. The Athletics, this is the great thing about run differential. So the Athletics are 12.5. The Angels are 13.5. So we'll start in the middle. So the Mariners, you guys' take on the Mariners were scoring quite a few more runs, even though their record wasn't great. What do you think their run differential is so far this year?
Plus 46.
Ted?
Plus 39.
Okay, you guys are fairly close, plus 29. The Astros, who recently started playing well, 8 games over, what do you think their run differential is?
Plus 2.
Plus 11.
Okay, plus 50. So then we have, I'm not going to make you guess at the Athletics. They're minus 71, which is way low.
Wow.
The Rangers, 16 games over 500. What do you think their run differential is?
Ooh.
I'm thinking they're in the 60s.
54.
Plus 6. So the Angels.
Really?
Yes. So the Angels, who are in last place, 11 games under 500. What do you think their run differential is?
Just for fun, I'll say minus 11.
Okay. Ted?
Minus 18.
0. It's 0.
Wow.
They've scored 477 and they've given up 477, which goes to show you in baseball, it means crap, the run differential.
Right.
That means absolutely nothing. So the Cubs are plus 166, and they lead their division by 6.5 over the Cardinals and 9.5 over the Pirates. And then, the Mets are plus 12. If you went by run differential, they'd be second in their division. They trail the Nationals 7.5, and the Marlins are back by 6, so the Mets are behind the Marlins. And the Nationals plus 116. And then the Giants lead the Dodgers by 1 game at this point, because the Giants have played horribly lately, thank God. But they're plus 50, and the Dodgers are plus 65. And then the Rockies are 8 games back, plus 5. And then the Diamondbacks are minus 83 because they suck. But anyway, that's
all
they
about
do.
timing.
They just suck. Yeah, exactly. So stats real fast. Jose Altuve just traded to the Mets, 356. Xander Bogaerts, also a recent addition to the Mets, 331. Then David Ortiz, and then the National League, Daniel Murphy, who refused to play for the Mets, plus 351. And Wilson Ramos. But Murphy got nicked up last night. I'm not sure how long he's out for, actually. Hurt himself running the bases. 332. And then in home runs, Mark Trumbo, 30. Todd Frazier, 29. Edwin Encarnacion, 28 in the American League. Trevor Story, 27. Nolan Arenado, 26. Chris Bryant, 26. And then in wins, we have Chris Sale, 14. Rick Porcello, 14, who's having a great season. Chris Tillman, 14. Strasburg, 14 in the National. Johnny Cueto, 13. And Arrieta, 12. And Jose Fernandez at 12. And then in saves, we have Familia with 36, way ahead of everybody else. 5 games up over A.J. Ramos of the Marlins and Kenley Jansen. And then in the American League, we have Zach Britton at 32, although I believe he's taken some time off to invade Normandy. And then Francisco Rodriguez is 29. So, and then real quick, NL WAR, Chris Bryant starting to separate himself, 5.4. Second place is Anthony Rizzo, a first baseman, which is interesting, of WAR at 4.1. And then in AL, we have Mike Trout, 6.4, and Jose Altuve, 5.9, which goes to show you maybe WAR is a little overrated when you have a first baseman. He's a great hitting first baseman, and maybe he's a really good fielding first baseman, but is he more valuable than a center fielder, per se? Not so sure. So that's the stats. That's basically everything we have. But one more thing. For anybody who watched the RNC and DNC and is thinking of the fear that would be a President Donald Trump when we have a 50-50 chance and it's neck and neck right now for absolutely no reason, these are your top 5 places to visit in Toronto if you want to move there. So number 5, take in some history. We have the Royal Ontario Museum, and this is according to timeout.com. Become a lumberjack. Number 4, Canada is not, contrary to the stereotype, a frozen tundra populated by igloos and lumberjacks. But okay, yeah, we still enjoy our plaid, and sometimes we want to get in touch with our burly, rugged history. You can actually learn to throw an axe with the Backyard Axe Throwing League, which sounds fantastic, actually. Where you and your friends can enter a group tournament to see, we should have a BBB. We should go to Canada and have a Backyard Axe Throwing League, where you, I, and Todd and Ted can enter a group tournament to see who has the chops to triumph. Number 3 is, this is awesome, root for the home team. Hockey is more than a sport in Canada. It's a national obsession, and Toronto is no different. And even though they're currently having the longest dry spell in AHL history, the Maple Leafs still draw a crowd and a certain amount of mocking. There's even a beloved children's book about the shame of sporting a Maple Leaf sweater, which I think is awesome. Maybe if we cheer hard enough, Torontonians will see the Stanley Cup somewhere other than the Hockey Hall of Fame, or will give it a try yourself. Every winter, over 50 outdoor ice rinks in Toronto alone. The most popular is Nathan Phillips Square, where the fountain becomes a skating spot. Number 2 is, it's impossible to visit Toronto without seeing the CN Tower, mainly because at the 553.33 meters high, you'll have to change your math if you move to Canada, it dominates the landscape. Once the world's tallest tower, it's still impressive. And then number 1, 90-minute drive, but you're pretty close to Niagara Falls. But there's other places in Canada that would be more than happy to take you, unless they build a wall and charge us to build it. So you guys have any thoughts on, not Canada, but just the week ahead? Ted, you have a show, right? You have a show on Wednesday.
Yes, I have a show on Wednesday, but the week ahead, I just want to, for everyone that plays fantasy football, don't be upset because Antonio Brown is making $1 million this year and DeAndre Hopkins is making 1.42, and he is officially holding out for a new contract. So I hopefully you haven't picked your teams yet. Don't be nervous. Hopefully all of this stuff will be worked out. But really excited about fantasy football this season. But as always, we have a show coming up on Wednesday. our last week's show, I'll give you a brief recap. We had female boxer Lisa P. Cohen, the former ladies bantamweight champion, on. She talked about her time growing up in a foster home, and all her journey towards winning the title. So every week we have someone special on, talking in the areas of technology education, and there she is. It's like clockwork. Jeez. So we have someone talking in the worlds of technology education, parenting, and/or sports. So that's where we are. We're going to have great show on Happy Hour Network, and you can expect this every Wednesday night, whether it's a live show or a recorded show. But a lot of good stuff. We're going to be also, I believe this week, we're going to be talking about the DNC WikiLeaks. We're going to have a cybersecurity expert on to talk about what's happening with all these hacks, the DNC, the DCCC. That's kind of where we are. What's happening with you guys?
Well, I'm looking forward to UFC 201 tonight, which will certainly be much better than UFC 200. Robbie Lawler's fighting, and that's a guarantee of crazy excitement. So that's tonight. Pay-per-view. Go ahead and send your money to UFC before the new owners get it. And I'm also looking forward to Donald Trump either revealing a classified secret or showing his total stupidity, because like yesterday he complained that we're paying rent to Saudi Arabia for a base there, which we haven't had a base there for 13 years. So if there is a base there, that was classified. So one way or the other, what a moron. Yay, Donald.
And we have a Seahawks show that should be on Thursday evening.
Yeah.
Nice. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. And then next week we have Al Yellen of Bleed Cubby Blue on as our guest to talk Cubs and more. And we'll be, of course, talking about what happened in the trade deadline, because a lot of exciting stuff is about to happen in the next 48 hours. Tim Kaine, of course, reiterated this speech. It was a 10-second speech, greatest speech ever at DNC.
6 years ago, I looked at a picture of the world's greatest newspapermen. I felt like a kid in front of a candy store. Well, tonight, 6 years later, I got my candy, all of it.
And we got our candy by you listening to the show, so thanks for listening. Here's our outro.
The fans hoping to catch a little bit of the old-time religion right here, baby. With Junior stepping up to the plate. Here comes the stretch. And the pitch to Junior on the way. Swing and a fly ball into deep right center field. That baby is going to be fly away. The old-time religion lives. Junior does it. A 2-run home run. And we are tied at 3-3. My, oh my. Magic is back at least for a night.
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever. Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.